If you live in Cicero, Illinois, there is a literal battle taking place right above your head. Welcome to our Explainer, where we're digging into some fantastic insights from Patriot Roofing Chicago to figure out exactly what happens when extreme weather goes toe-to-toe with residential architecture. If you've ever found yourself wondering why some roofs seem to last for decades while others practically fall apart after just one stormy season, well, you're in exactly the right place. Here's our battle plan for today's Explainer. We're going to cover the Cicero weather threat, spotting common roof problems, choosing the exact right materials, navigating the roofing process itself, and finally, we'll wrap up with some expert answers to FAQs. Let's just jump right in. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the Cicero weather threat. You know, it turns out the real enemy here isn't just the sheer extreme of the temperatures, though those are definitely intense. Cicero sits right in the path of Lake Michigan weather systems. We're talking temperatures plunging way below zero in the winter and then soaring to well over 90 degrees in the summer. But the true threat? That's the brutal freeze-thaw cycle. Think about it. During a warm spell, melting snow and moisture seep right under your roofing materials. Then, when the temperature plummets overnight, that trapped water freezes and expands, literally lifting, cracking, and destroying the materials from the inside out. Add in those sudden spring windstorms and heavy summer downpours, and honestly, these roofs are working harder than almost anywhere else. And the wild thing is, local geography completely changes your threat level. It is absolutely not a one-size-fits-all situation. The flat terrain around Cicero offers basically zero wind protection, so homes near Cermak Road and Hawthorne Park, they take the full, brutal force of straight-line winds. Meanwhile, if you look at the older homes along the Cicero Avenue corridor, they often have multiple roof layers that actively trap moisture, which leads to hidden rot. Now, if you're over near Sportsman's Park, you've got full, unprotected wind exposure, meaning wind-rated materials are an absolute must. And around the Morton College area, you'll see a mix of architectural styles. Everything from low-pitched ranches to steep colonials, and each one requires entirely different waterproofing tactics. Moving on to Section 2, spotting common roof problems and the signs of damage. Now, an ice dam is a massive, massive issue in these freeze-thaw climates. Here's how it works. It forms when heat escapes through your roof and melts the snow that's just sitting on top of it. That melted water naturally runs down to the cold edges, the eaves, and it refreezes right there, creating a literal dam made of ice. The water behind it then backs up under the shingles and seeps straight into your home, ruining ceilings and insulation. It's a mess. So the absolute most crucial takeaway here is this. An ice dam is fundamentally a heat and ventilation issue. It is not just a snow issue. If your attic is properly insulated and ventilated, the roof stays cold, and those ice dams simply don't form. So before a minor leak turns into a super expensive disaster, there are a few key warning signs you really need to keep an eye out for. First up, wind lifted or missing shingles. These leave your vulnerable underlayment totally exposed to the elements. Second, look out for deteriorated metal flashing around your chimneys and vents. Remember those freeze-thaw cycles we just talked about? Yeah, they crack that caulking right open. Third is hidden deck rot, which is caused by trapped moisture in a poorly ventilated attic. And finally, if you ever see shingle granules collecting in your gutters, pay attention. That is a clear-cut indicator that your shingles are aging and physically breaking down. All right, Section 3, choosing the right materials to armor your home. Because, let's face it, not all armor is created equal. On one hand, you've got basic 3-type shingles, but the source material for our explainer makes it incredibly clear basic 3-tab shingles just do not cut it in harsh Illinois weather. On the other hand, we have the real solution, architectural and Class 4 impact-resistant shingles. We're talking about products that are rated to withstand winds up to 130 miles per hour. Plus, those Class 4 impact-rated shingles can actually survive the kind of hail damage that would completely destroy standard materials. And as a nice bonus, they can even qualify you for insurance discounts. A real win-win. But what about underneath those shingles? That underlayment is your second line of defense. Now, the traditional choice has usually been felt underlayment, but when we're battling Cicero's intense temperature extremes, switching to synthetic underlayment is absolutely critical. It vastly outperforms felt because it resists moisture so much better. And, crucially, it won't tear during installation. That is a huge advantage if you suddenly get hit with a weather delay before the shingles are even nailed down. Okay, let's talk about the absolute golden rule of roofing health. It's the 1 to 300 rule. This is the required ventilation ratio, and it's super important. You need 1 square foot of ventilation for every 300 square feet of attic space. And it has to be perfectly balanced, too, between the intake at the soffits and the exhaust up at the ridge. If you don't have that balance, you end up trapping heat and moisture. That rots your decking from the inside out, completely ruins your energy efficiency, and get this, it can actually void your shingle warranties. Which brings us to Section 4, navigating the roofing process with a step-by-step guide. Look, getting a new roof can be super anxiety-inducing, right? But a proper contractor uses a really straightforward 3-step process to just eliminate all those nasty surprises. Step 1 is a full, thorough inspection. And I don't just mean looking at the shingles from the driveway. They need to get right up into your attic to check the decking and the ventilation from the inside to catch any of that hidden rot. Step 2 is the actual repair or replacement. That means tearing off the old materials all the way down to the bare wooden deck, replacing any rotted wood, and then laying down the new system strictly to the manufacturer's specifications. And finally, Step 3 is the final inspection and warranty phase. That involves a massive cleanup, usually using magnetic rollers to catch all those stray, dangerous nails, a final walkthrough with you, the homeowner, and of course, verifying all the local code compliance. So what about timelines? Because that's what everyone wants to know. Here is what you can realistically expect. Say a tree punches a hole in your roof. Emergency tarping and leak response should happen within 24 hours to stop water intrusion dead in its tracks. The actual replacement of an average-sized roof, that usually takes just 1 to 3 days, assuming the weather plays nice. As for upkeep, you should be inspecting your roof every 6 months, once in the spring and once in the fall. And finally, the big payoff, if installed correctly with that proper ventilation we talked about, you can expect a new asphalt roof in this tough climate to last you 20 to 25 years. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, expert answers to FAQs, focusing on those logistical questions. The number one question: do I really need a permit to replace my roof in Cicero, Illinois? The answer is a very strict yes. The Town of Cicero Building Department requires permits for all re-roofing projects. And trust me, you never, ever want to skip this step. Sure, skipping the permit might save you a tiny bit of time up front, but unpermitted work causes massive headaches when you eventually try to sell your home. Even worse, it can completely void your manufacturer protections and insurance coverage. The permit process is there to ensure your installation is actually up to local building codes. Here's another great question for this specific climate. Can I get my roof repaired in the winter? Well, the answer is kind of nuanced. Yes, emergency patches and temporary tarping absolutely happen year-round to protect your home. However, full-on replacements during the freezing Illinois winter are really not ideal. Why? Because the shingle adhesives literally require temperatures to be above 40 degrees just to seal properly. Extreme cold also makes the materials super brittle. Plus, let's be honest here, nobody wants to be doing a full tear-off on a roof in the middle of a freezing Illinois blizzard anyway. So, patches happen in the winter for sure, but major replacements should definitely be scheduled for the warmer months. So, what can you actually do proactively? Well, here is your preventative maintenance checklist. First, get up there or hire someone to get up there and inspect the roof twice a year. You're looking for loose shingles or any damaged flashing. Second, make sure to add insulation to your attic floor. This keeps the heat inside your living space, which directly prevents those dreaded ice dams we talked about earlier. Third, keep those soffit and ridge vents totally clear so you have continuous airflow. And lastly, after a major blizzard, use a long-handled roof rake from the ground to safely pull heavy snow off the edges of your roof before it even has a chance to melt and refreeze. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to look at your roof a little differently. It's not just a passive lid sitting on top of your house. It is a highly critical active defense system. Every single shingle, every vent, every piece of underlayment, they're all working together to fight off straight-line winds and those extreme freeze-thaw cycles. So take a look up and ask yourself, is your home truly armed for the next storm? Thanks so much for joining me today, and as always, keep learning.